Well, thanks to Gus and Mike, my Go is now an oxygen therapy rebreather. There's a lot of science that says having a partial pressure above 1 or even 1, which is 100% O2, helps healing. This, not this, this.
That's,
I know you're probably filming that. This is my lower herniated disc area that needs healing, and it was pretty cool. Mike sent this, so you can see what he did here. You see how they made a connection that goes right from the oxygen tank. There's the oxygen tank. We know it's a constant mass flow, but now, guess what? When I breathe in and I collapse the lungs after I metabolize the oxygen, it's gonna fire this awesome ADV made by Deep 6. And I can also fire O2 just by pushing the purge button. Or, well, actually that's the only way. That's the only way it's hooked up now, because we took it off the actual MAV and we made it work from the ADV. So it's pretty cool. I'm going to attempt here to go underwater. We're at altitude here in Atlanta. It's going to be hard to get above a 1.0, I could tell you that. I'll be lucky to get to a 1.0, and we only got about 5 feet of depth. So I'm going to strap on my beautiful X Deep BC. Any BC will work with the Go. This one is set up to just clip it, boom, boom, and then I call this the Gus method, where he hooked these lower bungees, clip in, pretty nice. Wear it, go underwater, breathe 100% oxygen for like 15 minutes. Let's see how it goes. So you see here in Atlanta, it's difficult to get your PO2 exactly to 1.0 because we're at about 1,000 feet. So I can probably get on the surface here to about maybe like 0.95 or 6. And that's just because we're at altitude. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go underwater right here. I gotta put my mask on, obviously, that would be difficult. Super light, everything. Not even hurting my back one bit. This thing is like, it's great. It almost like gives me back support. It's weird. It's pushing against my back. Doesn't hurt at all, but that is better. I'm gonna turn my O2 on right here. Put this in my mouth. Open the DSV, and it's just gonna circulate oxygen. And even when the lungs collapse, fire the ADV. Thanks to the new setup, I will get 100% oxygen. This is awesome. Okay, so turning my O2 on. Nothing else is connected to it. Normally, I would have a back mount 80 cubic foot tank right there, and that is what would connect to my ADV right there. And I'd fire dill. Now I'm firing O2. Let's see how it goes. Okay, I'm going under.
All right, so while Woody's out there swimming in circles, I want to tell you a little bit more about this oxygen therapy. I know that some of you are looking at it and be like, is this some bogus, unscientific BS? No, it actually started a long time ago. I was reading about it. It's called hyperbaric oxygen therapy. This is different than oxygen therapy that you're breathing on the surface, because what happens is gases compress at depth. It's called Boyle's law. And the deeper you go, the more molecules of the gas that you're breathing will get into your bloodstream, which means that if you go at depth, you can get twice the amount of oxygen molecules, 3 times the amount of oxygen molecules, depending on how deep you go, into your bloodstream, which produces some health benefits. This started in the Navy, by the way. The US Navy started with this back in the 40s, apparently. And they used it to treat deep sea divers who had decompression sickness. That's how it started. And then it was used for carbon monoxide poisoning in the 60s. And anyways, now it's used for a lot of different things. Carbon monoxide poisoning, cyanide poisoning, crush injuries, gas gangrene, decompression sickness, acute or traumatic reduced blood flow in arteries, compromised skin grafts, infection in bones, delayed radiation injuries, flesh-eating disease, air or gas bubble traps in blood vessels, which is also known as gas embolism, chronic infections, diabetic wounds that are not healing properly. So it has a bunch of different benefits. It is believed that it will help with healing. Like if you have wounds that are taking longer to heal, there's actually people who go through surgery where hyperbaric oxygen therapies is offered as a way to help them heal faster. So that's what Woody's doing. You know, he has back problems. He wants to add that extra molecules of oxygen to help him heal his back. You know, it's not gonna hurt him. And you know, the challenge with oxygen, and we've talked about this on the show before, is that there is a risk when you go past 20 feet or 6 meters that your partial pressure of oxygen, meaning all of the molecules of oxygen that are getting on your blood, can cause a seizure. And what happens is that you don't die from all the molecules of oxygen, you die because you have a seizure and you drown. So that is the problem. So when you do this in a hyperbaric chamber and you're not underwater, people do have seizures. They bring them actually super deep and they give them all this oxygen under pressure and they could have a seizure, but they are breathing so they don't drown. And that's the advantage of doing it in a hyperbaric chamber. In a pool or underwater, it's more challenging because if you go deeper, you could have a seizure. But in this pool that is shallow, there's no risk.
I could get to about 0.99. Maintain between 0.95 and 0.99, right? Hard, you can't get it above a 1 because of where we're at here. And yeah, I can be neutral.
Get after it.
This is spot on the weight. I'm wearing a 2.5 mil wetsuit in an 84-degree pool because it's chilly. And the unit feels great. And I'm going back under for some more oxygen therapy.
Now you may be wondering, what's the purpose of using a rebreather, or the Go in this case, for this? Why not just breathe pure oxygen? Like if you have a tank of oxygen, breathing it, what's the difference? The difference is that when you breathe oxygen, or when we breathe air too, our bodies don't metabolize, they don't use all of the gas that is in it, all of the oxygen that is in it. We already talked about that nitrogen makes up 79% of the air that we breathe, and nitrogen is kind of inert. It's useless. Our bodies don't use it. So out of the 21% oxygen that we breathe, our bodies only use about 5%, and we're breathing out 16%. This is why mouth to mouth works, because you can breathe out 16% oxygen and the other person can, regain consciousness from it. So the difference with breathing out of an oxygen tank is, like, imagine you're breathing 100% oxygen and you're blowing out 95%. Let's just pretend. It's not exact because of diffusion and all these other things, but whatever. Let's just, for simplicity, if you're breathing in 100% of the gas and is all O2, and you're breathing out 95% of the gas is O2, the other 5% is CO2, then you're blowing out literally 95% of the gas that's still good. So the advantage of using the rebreather is that you're breathing in 100% of this gas, you're breathing out 95% of it O2, you can reuse that 95%. The 5% is scrubbed by the scrubber, the sophnolyme, the chemical that's inside the rebreather, is taken away, and now from the oxygen tank, you're only grabbing that 5% that your body metabolizes. So you reuse 95, you're only pulling 5. So think about that. With a regular tank, you breathe in, blow out 100% of it, which is 95% good and 5% bad. You're just blowing it all out and then taking a whole nother breath. With a rebreather, you breathe in, blow out, 95% still good. You only take that 5% from the tank. Breathe in, blow out, take another 5%. So little increments rather than 100% brand new gas every time. That's the advantage of using the rebreather. So a little tank, like the tank that comes with a Go, which is a 10.4 cubic feet tank, it's a very small tank, can last you for hours, right? It can last you for multiple hours because we're only taking a little bit every time rather than a full breath every time.
I'm gonna go right here. Let's see if you see any bubbles. You don't want to see bubbles coming out of a rebreather. It's a closed circuit. I'm sure Gus just explained it. And we usually, as buddy teams, check each other's rebreather to make sure there are no bubbles. I did a positive and negative pressure check before when I assembled it to make sure it was holding positive or holding negative, but I thought I saw some bubbles, but it could have been that I was just over pressuring the counter lungs. So I'm gonna go right here, get really still, and let's see if there's any bubbles coming up at all. We should not see any. Let's see.
You can see some bubbles coming out, but it looks like it's from the wing. I don't know if you can see that, but the bubbles are coming out from the wing, not the rebreather. Remember, the rebreather is on his chest, so if the bubbles were coming out, it will be coming out from the front, from like his mouth area or whatever. These bubbles are coming from the back. I don't know if you can see. It looks a lot better in person. I can definitely tell it's coming from the wing and not the rebreather. So the rebreather is sealed. Looks good. I can show you from here where the bubbles are coming from. Check that out. See how is the wing? Coming from the wing near his mouth, nothing, no bubbles. You can see the Go right there. Nothing, completely sealed. And back here, yeah, it's the wing.
You know what's amazing? I feel like I have a new back. Does it work? Could it be? Or is it mental? I don't know. But it was pretty cool. I mean, interesting, just being a little bit at altitude. I could get really still, keep it at about a 0.99 PO2. I really couldn't get higher than that. Rebreather worked great. Pretty flawless. It's very easy to put on and off. That's a couple other points. It's interesting because what we do is we lock the bottom and the top, right? So what I'm doing is I'm just unclipping a bottom clip. And it's not always that easy, but you can see this. This is what was holding it on the bottom. Just let go of it. And there's one on the other side. And there's a couple holes drilled in the plate that basically make that come on and off. You can see I just take off that one. And this one, not hurting my back at all. And it's pretty much off. I'm gonna lay it down. I've already closed the loop. I'll take the dive computer off, which is right here. That's it. That's all there is to it. Oxygen therapy. It's basically a 100% oxygen rebreather. You would absolutely not convert it to this to go on a dive. That would be really dangerous. What is the maximum depth that I could go to as being a 100% oxygen rebreather? I promise if you do the math, and I flushed it with 100% pure oxygen at 20 feet, that will be 1.6. And that's what we consider the outer limit on having your PO2. I know there's gonna be a lot of people, I've gone way higher than that and whatever, but that's just a recommended outer limit. The reason we don't want to exceed that is a couple reasons. One, if you go too high on your PO2, whatever too high is, you could convulse underwater. And if you're alone or you're not near your buddy, you're convulsing, you could start breathing in water, you could drown and die. That's one reason. Two is we have these CNS oxygen toxicity tables that tell us at a certain PO2 how long we can dive, both on a single dive and a 24-hour limit at that particular PO2, and we plan our dives around that. Well, we plan our dives around a bunch of stuff, including bailout gas, but that's one of the mechanisms that we're using for dive planning. So these are all the different types of things you learn in a Dive Talk Go Rebreather class. You learn how to plan your dive. You really learn the technical aspects of diving. You really learn to plan your dive and dive your plan. It's a little different than a recreational dive because you can't necessarily just go to the surface. You may have a deco obligation, which means you got to stop at a particular depth before you can go to the surface. So it's awesome. This rebreather is made for, and the limitation really on this one is the size of the sorb. So when I say limitation, it's about a 2.5 hour sorb life.
Yeah, it's rated for 2.5 hours.
It's rated for 2.5 hours, so we don't exceed that, and we're not doing super cold water diving. That can limit the sorb use. We're not doing strenuous dives, but 2.5 hours. I got to tell you, in my whole life of diving, I haven't done very many dives over 2 hours anyway. But to hop off a boat and just clip that baby on in my normal recreational BC, this is a recreational BC by XD, it's wonderful. It's awesome. It's no bubbles, and you get the benefits of a rebreather. So thanks for watching, and
by the way,
feeling better.
Because we did actually interview an expert in oxygen therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, Dr. Joe DiTuri. We went to his clinic in Tampa, pretty awesome tour. You immediately got in the chamber with no permission, but let's leave the video right here so you guys can check it out and learn more about
I think the
Joe.
next time I am going to ask for permission. I thought about it, and maybe I should. Bye, everybody.